1981, Arizona State made tournament history by winning both the men's and women's divisions of the National Collegiate Bowling Championships. Emotions ran high. In the women's division, both teams made the great shots. Arizona State defeated Penn State in the finals, 181 to 167. Then it was time for the Arizona State men to go to work in what can only be described as a strike fest. They laid to rest the aspirations of West Texas State, 235 to 196, to take the national championship. Today, after surviving regional and sectional eliminations and tough competition from 22 other schools, the Arizona State teams are back to defend their dual national collegiate championships. And the question is, can Arizona State do it again? Dwayne Dow with Chuck Pisano. We're in Orlando, Florida, at Fairlane Sky Bowl, site of the 1982 National Collegiate Team Bowling Championships. Chuck, always an exciting moment. These college bowlers really have the enthusiasm.
They certainly have. Each year it gets bigger and better. They dig down. The talent is there. It's improved tremendously over the past 5 years. These are the survivors of a potential 10,000 bowling teams.
Chuck, as you and I know, team bowling on a league basis is really at the soul of the American 10-pin sport. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursday nights, league competition on a team basis around the United States. But we have an interesting team concept for our championships tournament today.
This is called the Baker system, named after Frank Baker. It's the purest concept of team bowling. Here we see a graphic on it. Lead-off bowler bowls the first and sixth frame, second, the second and seventh frame. Unless you're the anchor man, you can't get a double for your team unless two different bowlers get strikes back to back. It's the toughest way to bowl. It's the truest test in team bowling.
So we're going to see a number of different teams, and we're going to see 30 different bowlers in the next hour. We're going to have a lot of fun, so let's get to the action. Now it's our first men's match. Defending national men's champion Arizona State University battles Michigan State. Heading into the sixth frame, this match is even between Arizona State and Michigan State. Our second look at Matt Brockert, who struck earlier. He's too high here, Chuck.
Matt went up well, got the ball on his spot, but again, he slowed up a bit. The minute you slow up, that ball will hook at the last minute. That's just what he did, leaves the 6-10. Shouldn't have too much trouble with despair, though he must watch out for chopping the 6 from the 10.
The team average for Arizona State, 201. And through this year, go ahead, Chuck.
And to put that in perspective, it only takes a 190 average to join the Professional Bowlers Association. And 3 of these bowlers have ideas of becoming pro bowlers.
And they look like pros. Yes. We continue even into the sixth frame. There's Tony Maresca, the coach of the Sun Devils. We mentioned
he looks very nervous.
He is a very intense individual.
Key ball here. Michigan State is ahead by 2 pins. A strike here will put them ahead by 12. You can see the tension on his face.
National Bowling Council coordinating this championship, the nonprofit education arm of the sport of bowling. 5-pin. And on the National Bowling Council are all the major elements of the sport. The league bowler organizations, manufacturers, bowling center owners, and service groups. The council undertakes a wide range of educational and promotional programs designed to benefit those who take part in the great sport of American 10-pins.
They work with bowlers from 6 to 100. Good spare by Carl. At the end of 6 frames, 2-pin difference, Michigan State leading. Just 2 pins separating these 2 top teams.
And a lot can happen in these next 4 frames.
It's going to.
Go into the 7th. Scott Milne. Oh, there's a split.
The impact of this split is rather devastating. He loses 3 pins on the spare. His team was down 2 pins. If he misses the spare, he'll lose another. So they could go from a 2-pin deficit to a 15-pin deficit.
Now our next match right after this match will be Erie Community College against Arizona State for the Women's National Championship. And an open frame. That's the second open frame for Michigan State. And we've had one open frame, or for Arizona State. And we've had one open frame for Michigan State. Kendall Sherman.
A strike here. Michigan State will be leading by 16 pins.
7th frame, the senior accounting major for the Michigan State Spartans.
Good ball, good ball. Could have had it.
4-pin never moved. Coach Don Irish has his team ready. Their spare bowler is Don Hochstein. Now, during the tournament, the coach is permitted to send a pinch hitter in there. So
yes, yes, he does. And here it's a difficult thing to determine whether you should put a bowler in.
We haven't seen it yet on our telecast. There's a spare for Kendall Sherman.
Michigan State now leading by 15 pins with 3 frames to go. 7 frames are now history. Arizona State looking to become the first team to repeat. In fact, the first team to win more than one title.
Jeff Jones, 195 average. Wants to be a professional bowler after his college days. Jeff leaving the 7.
Jeff would throw it right there again if he had another opportunity. Perfect ball. Leaves the 7-pin. Just part of the game. No explanation necessary. Sub is going in right now.
Oh. So this would be Rob Richmond.
Right.
Hey, they talk about special teams in football. We've got special teams in bowling.
I know very few pros who would want to go in and shoot the end pin, but in this case the left-handed bowler leaves the 7-pin, which is the most difficult spare, and you put a right-handed bowler, and the 7-pin is much easier for him than the 10-pin. This is good strategy on the coach's part.
He has to be a little nervous now. He hasn't been a part of it until right here, the 8th frame in the heart of the match.
1 ball. Oh, he's a lefty. He's got it.
He did his job.
Pinch hitter.
Special teams in bowling, folks. Rob Richmond, a senior.
Dwayne, we can't emphasize enough that these are the finalists. They have bowled 30 games here in order to get to this finals, and that's a tremendous grind for collegiate bowlers who between their studies and everything just don't have enough time to bowl 30 to 50 games every week.
Now Jeff Briggs. Oh, he has a soldier. The 2-4-8.
Yes, his problem here is that 8-pin in the back. He must hit this spare full or it will chop it.
Jeff Briggs, a biochemistry major.
And he needs this spare to keep his team ahead.
There's Coach Don Irish, 18 years coaching bowling at Michigan State.
They've got the right color.
Indeed they do. Those famous Michigan State colors.
Great spare under pressure. That was a very difficult spare. Michigan State maintains a 12-pin lead by virtue of that spare. All right, the key on this spare is to make sure you cover that back pin. To just forget about the 2 front pins. Make sure you cover that 8-pin, which he does perfectly.
Up until this year, the American Bowling Congress and the Women's International Bowling Congress have sanctioned college bowling in America. But now they have the formation of a new group we'll be talking about in a few moments. Arizona State coming up with a clutch strike in the 9th.
Foundation.
All right, that was Warren Eels striking in the 9th for Arizona State. And down to the bottom of the 9th frame of this close match. Michigan State leading, Michigan State up in the person of Doug Racine.
This is a key frame here. He must get at least 9 pins in a mark to maintain more than a 10-pin lead. This has to go down to the final frame.
The Young American Bowling Alliance has been formed to sanction all youth bowling, including college bowling in America. Strike in the 9th. Michigan State.
Still 12 pins as we go into the final frame. Watch how he reaches over the line with the ball. Good finger lift there. The ball now will just finish greatly on the end. All the pins in the pit. That shows a great strike.
Now Arizona State's national championship is in jeopardy. What do they have to do here in the 10th?
If he can, what he has to do is to put the pressure on his opponent by getting a strike right here.
They need it badly, and they got it.
The difference now is 2 pins. If he can get a strike, his team will take the lead by 8 pins and force Michigan State's anchorman to get a strike. There are a number of different possibilities, but a strike again here is very important.
Merle Serra, just a sophomore, but as a freshman, he contributed to Arizona State's national championship a year ago. All of these Arizona State players used to the pressure as they won the national title a year ago in St. Louis. No.
Best Arizona State can get now is 188, which means that Michigan State must have a mark. They cannot do it without one.
Merle Serra really wanted that strike. Look of concern in the faces of the Arizona State bowlers. There's a spare. Merle Serra unhappy. What? This one of the finest bowlers in our finals today. The anchorman for the Arizona State national champions, and now
must have a mark. Cannot win the game without a strike or a spare.
Michigan State is on the verge of knocking out the defending champion, but we must have a strike or a spare here.
All on the shoulders of Hank Beadle.
His average 204.
Notice the quiet. We can't say there's an official winner yet because he could foul or anything else. He must keep the ball on the lanes.
The disappointment on the face of Tony Maresca, but he congratulates the Michigan State team.
Light hit comes in and sweeps the pins beautifully. He just gets a piece of the head pin, but it's enough to scramble the pins all around. Last 3 pins to go down, 4, 5, 7.
And back to the action on the lanes, a 9-pin count.
More
so
than
they
enough.
won it. All right, so Hank Beadle has just gotten a 9-pin count after that replay.
If he picks up this pin, he'll have a 201 to a 188. Both fine games in the Baker system.
So the winner is Michigan State, and Michigan State now will go on to the championship match against Washington State. So as the crowd gets set to watch our men's championship match, Erie Community College has won the National Collegiate Women's title, beating Arizona State 205 to 193. And now the men's championship. Michigan State versus Washington State. The Big Ten versus the Pacific 10. And Chuck Pisano, this is it.
If there was any surprise in the tournament, it was the strong showing of Washington State. They had been rated 13th in the country. Of all the teams that made the finals, they were the lowest ranked team, but they're showing it. They came through after a bad start in the tournament to lead the qualifying.
This is a team of all right-handers, Michigan State, and Washington State has many left-handers.
No comment.
Carl Nicolai. Oh, no.
Straight wood split, 4-6-10. We've seen a number of splits on the opening ball. I think basically it's a little tension. The bowler tries a bit too hard, slows up. A ball that normally would be in the pocket because of the slowness goes into the nose.
Among the people watching today, Roger Tessman, newly elected Executive Secretary of the American Bowling Congress. Open frame there. Roger Tessman succeeds Ken Hurley, the outgoing Executive Secretary of the American Bowling Congress, who has given so much of his life to the 10-pin sport. As we see an open frame.
Heads up some 5 million bowlers.
Fine gentleman out of Greendale, Wisconsin. All right. Leadoff man for Washington State, senior Bob Hansen. No. 6-9-10. They call this fellow the spark plug of the team.
In many cases, a leadoff man is the spark plug of the team because he gets you off to the pace you want to start at, and usually he's one of your most solid bowlers. He often isn't the best bowler on the team, but he's the guy that gives inspiration.
He gave Washington State the lead. No, he didn't.
Chopped the spare. That was the only thing he had to worry about.
They have a 1-pin lead, 9-8 at the end of the first frame. But it could have been much more than that. I'd like to talk about the coming sites of the American Bowling Congress Championships tournament. Future years, we'll get to that after this delivery by Kendall Sherman of Michigan State. Another split. In 1984, the American Bowling Congress Championships tournament will be held in Reno, Nevada. In 1985 in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And next year, 1983, Niagara Falls, New York. Okay. Going for the spare. This past year, Baltimore, Maryland. And Chuck Pisano, my colleague on these broadcasts, was one of 4 gentlemen inducted into the American Bowling Congress Hall of Fame in Baltimore this past year. Chuck Pisano, Don Johnson of Pro Bowling fame, John Claris, and George Billick. And Chuck, a belated congratulations. It has to be one of your great highlights.
No question, Dwayne. It was a great experience. The ceremony is one of the greatest in any sports, and I attended the Football Hall of Fame and baseball, but a little prejudice, this was the greatest.
I know you were thrilled. Now we have nothing but open frames so far.
Very surprising.
All right.
He's probably a bit scared. He's probably going to try and play it safe and not hit the head.
Gary Routh leaving the 2-4-5. Just a spare will put anybody into the lead.
You say just a spare, but this is not the easiest spare. This is another one that you have to be very careful with chop.
Gary Routh is a fine arts major at Washington State. He wants to become a graphic designer upon graduation.
Right now, his design is on these 3 pins.
You bet. Bottom half of the second frame. These teams getting off to a slow start.
It's amazing how this always can keep so quiet during a tee shot. Should cover. Very well done. I'd like to pay special tribute to Tommy Kreitz, Brad Friggs, Robert Richmond, Peter Cazzo, Jim Campbell, Dan Lovejoy, Jim Kent, Hank Beadle, Tim Modlin, Charlie Vasher, Mel Serra, Curtis Cole, Mark McDowell, Chris Clapper. Every one of them averaged better than 200 in this tournament. That breaks the ice. Cross-hit strike, no matter how. Take anyone when you're struggling. That can usually break the ice for you.
That was Jeff Briggs for Michigan State. And the first mark for Michigan State in the match. Washington State trying to follow the spare of Gary Routh as Jim Kent gets set to bowl. This fellow's a major in range management. He wants to, after college, go into land rehabilitation and the preservation of wildlife. From Yakima, Washington, Jim Kent. See, the name is Sowers on the shirt. That's for a teammate, Dave Sowers, who is not here because of a broken finger.
He's a 10 on his spot here. He'll try to reach out with his spot. Good finish at the line. He's firm there. Good knee bend.
Looks like a conductor in an orchestra. Okay.
The key to most bowlers, Wayne, is when you get to that line that you're low, your arm is just over the foul line, and your knee is bent. So you can be firm and solid at the line when you release the ball.
Washington State leads by 12. Michigan State trying to double. And did. A double. Doug Racine.
Makes the game very close right now. Washington State just holds a 2-pin lead. However, a strike coming in here. He sits right in the pocket. Again, carries the 4-7 as a kick from the 5-pin as it went across the lane.
So just as our women's match heated up and was not decided until the final frame, the men's match starting to heat up. Dan Lovejoy, Jr.
Trying to come up with the first double for Washington State to increase their lead to 12 pins. And he does. Classic ball, classic style.
The last 3 bowlers in the Washington State lineup are left-handers.
There hasn't been many times one center will favor a left-hander over a right-hander. They seem to be equal here. There's no advantage for the right-hander or the left-handers.
Anchorman for the Michigan State Spartans is Hank Beadle, economics major.
Could have been. Light hit. Leaves the 10-pin. He'll move to the left of the lane, try to roll the ball across the lane.
Hank Beadle set the all-time 4-game qualifying record for this tournament. 956.
Almost a 240 average.
His average is 204 during this past collegiate bowling season.
Oops. He was a bit worried on that. He slowed up and the ball hooked a bit.
Now Washington State, trailing by 12 pins, is looking to virtually even it up here with a 5th frame delivery coming for Jim Campbell.
Jim can increase that lead to 22 pins with a strike here.
Washington State leading by 12 pins. Campbell.
Now it's going to be an even game unless he converts this split. 4-10. This is basic.
Come on, Jim, we'll sit down. Give it a shot.
Mike Hubler, graduate of Iowa State University, the head coach of the Washington State Cougars.
Leaves the 10 pin. And right now, Michigan State, for the first time, has taken a 1-pin lead in this game. At the end of 5 frames, the halfway point, it's Michigan State by 1 pin. And we're talking here not about 2 colleges. We're talking about Michigan against Washington, because the 5 members of the Washington team are from Washington. The 5 members of the Michigan team are from Michigan.
A lot of bowlers in Michigan. Detroit's the #1 city in the United States for total number of male and female bowlers. Outside the pocket, Carl Nicolai
loses 3 pins on wood there, so now Michigan State is trailing by 2, and Carl still has a difficult spare here. The 1-2-4. We're talking about the fence. The best way to make it is to hit the #1 or head pin to the left of the pin. Ball deflects, takes each pin with the ball. You can also make it on the outside, but that's rather dangerous.
and the spare for Carl Nicolai of Michigan State, senior, who headed to law school upon graduation from the East Lansing institution.
Dwayne, I want to give the girls equal time because Patty Bowie, Sue Velli, Mary Howell, Sharon Bailey, Teresa Killis, Susan Cleveland all averaged better than 190 in their competition for the tournament.
Our second look at Bob Hansen. We asked this fellow what his major is, and he said bowling. He laughed and said, no, it's really business. Loves this game. And look at that, the dancing pin.
That was the #11 pin came over and helped him out.
Oh, yeah, I want to see that again.
He'll come in light here, keeps the pins dancing, which is one thing the pros like to do. Try to figure out what pin that was. That looked like the 2 pin went all the way to the left, came across the lane and knocked out the 10.
Little magic. Now back to the action. We have the 4-7 here in the top of the 7th frame for Michigan State's Kendall Sherman, senior, with the Spartans, as we look at Coach Mike Kubler and the Washington State Cougars. Kendall Sherman out of Detroit. Great bowling city, as we just mentioned.
Washington State leading by 4 pins at this point. This is the first key situation in this game. Washington State leading by 4 pins right now. If you can come up with a strike, it will increase that lead to 14 pins, and we're getting to the latter stages, the last 3 frames of the game.
7th frame, Gary Routh for Washington State out of Spokane, Washington.
That area is producing fine bowlers. Earl Anthony, Gary Mage.
His team is on a strike. And gets another in the 7th. So Washington State out to a lead of 14
pins.
Into the 8th frame. Michigan State trailing by 14.
3 frames to go. It's far from being too late now, but Michigan State cannot hesitate. They must get back in this ball game.
Jeff Briggs, biochemistry major at Michigan State.
Oh, strong ball.
Clutch.
Came in light on the pocket. The 1-3 just swept the pins off the lane.
That's the first strike for Michigan State since the 4th frame. They doubled in the 3rd and 4th, and 3 spares, and now a strike here in the 8th, and now we go to the bottom of the 8th. and Jim Kent.
Jim's taking his time. He's taking a good deep breath because he knows a strike here will give Washington State an additional 10 pins and a 24-pin lead.
Left-handers the rest of the way for Washington State. Jim is Brooklyn and left the 5-pin.
He'll settle for 9. Yes.
I'd like to thank our fine TV crew here in Orlando, Florida, at Fairlane Sky Bowl. Bob Diaz, fine job of producing the telecast. Director Keith Bozarth and his excellent crew. Keith Satter, Director of Marketing for the National Bowling Council. Lance Elliott, Executive Director of the National Bowling Council. Betsy Montagna, Public Relations Director. We certainly needed their help.
Makes the spare here.
A lot of great collegiate bowling excitement. We might be seeing the birth of one of the sport of the 80s in the colleges. It's certainly a great participation sport, and this concept, the Baker system as it's called, Chuck, proves to be great for television.
Second key shot right here for Michigan State. They're trailing by 13. A strike here will take 10 of those pins back and give them a shot to take a lead in at 10. So it's a very important ball.
9th frame for Doug Racine. No, he's not there, and almost a washout.
Almost broke it up. Much easier spare with the 1-2-4 than with that 10-pin additionally standing. Must make the spare.
Michigan State trailing by 13, 9th frame. There you see that each of these teams trying to be a first-time national champion, as defending champion Arizona State is out.
They sure put out good football teams.
Yes, they do. Whoa, a miss, and they didn't need that. The Spartans with a miss in the 9th frame. So now Dan Lovejoy.
The best Michigan State can do now is 179. Washington State with 2 marks can sew up the game regardless of what Michigan State does. So this is a very key frame, the 9th frame, foundation frame for Washington State. Dan Lovejoy. Dan, one of the solid bowlers in the tournament, averaged 205 for all his games.
Well, disappointment there after that miss. There'll be another day. Oh!
9 and a wiggle.
The 10 pin still, he's trying to help it go down. Dan Lovejoy, he thought he had it.
This is a very important spare here. Washington State still has a possible 203. And you just brought up an important point, the anguish there. These are still college students. They're not professionals by any means.
Not going for big money or any money.
Very
trophies.
Very pressure-racked competition. They've been bowling from morning till night for the past 2.5 days.
Lovejoy trying for an important Washington State spare here in the 9th frame. But he didn't get it. So we've got more 10th
Still
frame
13
drama.
pins difference. Now Michigan State can put the pressure right back on Washington State with a double here. The Michigan State anchorman, Hank Beadle, another one of the finest bowlers in the tournament, looking to come up with a double to force the Washington State anchorman, Jim Campbell, to come up with a striker spare. It seems no matter what happens, it goes right down to the final frame.
And one of the finest bowlers in the tournament here in Orlando. Beadle, clutch delivery. Yeah. Oh, 10-10 tap.
Okay, what happens now? If he makes this spare, packs 10, his team will have a 169. Then all Washington State will need will be 8 pins on 2 balls. Stranger things have happened. But he must have this, must put 10 on it to give his team even a long outside chance. Hurts it. He has one more ball. Best he can do for his team would be 10 pins here to give them a 169 game. Remember, this is the Baker system. The scores here necessarily and naturally are lower than in normal bowling because you can't get in a groove. You only bowl 2 frames out of the 10.
So, final ball of the match for Michigan State for the National Collegiate Team Bowling Championship. Solid 8-pin.
168 finish. They're basically conceding the match, but it's not over yet. 168. Washington State 162. He only needs 7 pins on 2 balls. Jim Campbell. I would assume he'll just try to hit the head pin.
Jim Campbell.
If he gets 7 pins, it's all over. And Washington State will be the new national team collegiate match champion.
This fellow is on the dean's list at Washington State already. He's passed his certified public accountant test.
And he just passed his bowling test. That's the championship to Washington State with that strike.
The champions, the Cougars of Washington State, have won the National Collegiate Men's Bowling Championship. The national champions, Erie Community College women, Washington State University men. With me, Alberta Crow, longtime head of women's bowling in America, new president of the National Bowling Council, and Roger Tessman, just elected the executive secretary treasurer of the American Bowling Congress. Roger, you have the trophy to give to the coach Kurt Helmer.
On behalf of the National Bowling Council, I congratulate you and your fine team on this championship. It's truly great.
And Alberta will crown the women. And now to Coach Mike Hubler and the men of Washington State. Lance Elliott of the National Bowling Council comes aboard with the men's national championship trophy. What a tournament here at Fairlane's Sky Bowl in Orlando. For Chuck Pisano, I'm Dwayne Dow. Till next time, so long, everybody.